The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Kanmani from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore. ICTIEE, the International Conference on Transformation in Engineering Education. The fourth in the series was held during Jan 2017 at 3 different locations, and I attended the conference held at Vardhaman College of Engineering, Hyderabad. And here I had the opportunity to have a short paper presented, the title being Continuous Quality Improvement through OBE. Had the opportunity to interact with Professor Vijay Kanaba, Boston University, who chaired the session. Now, the sequence of the presentation is as below. A brief introduction into the OBE system, and then ensuring continuous improvement at the program level, the course level, and defining the course outcomes, and how to ensure improvement at the institute level, followed by improvement through faculty contribution, and summarize with the essence of OBE. Now, just to see the OBE system or the outcomes-based education system, we try to identify as distinct 5 phases in the whole process. The first phase consists of the defining phase, wherein we have the vision and mission of the institute. Aligned with the institute vision and mission, every department shall arrive at its vision and mission. And for a department may be offering a number of programs, maybe a UG program and one or more PG programs. For every program, there exists a need to establish clearly the program educational objectives. And of course, the program outcomes are defined by NBA, but we need to be aware of the program outcomes defined by NBA. And in addition, to ensure some specific characteristics or features of every program, we define the program specific outcomes. And of course, every course in the curriculum shall have course outcomes. Now, the program outcomes defined by NBA are common across different branches, and since they are not specific to a branch, there exists a need to provide, define the program specific outcomes. So the first, if you look into the vision and mission, the institute during its inception would have coined its vision and mission, and there is nothing like what is the right vision, because every institute has a clear vision and they establish, and every vision is a right vision, and everyone strives to achieve the vision. And similarly, the department vision will be aligned with the institute vision. The program educational objectives actually reflect the performance of the graduates 3 to 5 years after they graduate. So that gives provides a measure of how our education is helping them face and pursue their professional career. So key to the program or every program is defining the program educational objectives, have clear idea of the program outcomes defined by NBA, and of course define the program specific outcomes, and in addition defining the course outcomes for every course. Now having completed this the initial phase, which is a phase of definition, the next stage in the OBE process can be identified as the implementation phase, wherein the institute or the department provides an ambience to achieve all the objectives and outcomes that are defined for the program. This may mean small changes in the classroom, the way a faculty delivers the class, or the way the faculty measures the teaching, maybe including small group activities or other changes within the classroom, all focused towards improvement in the quality of our graduates. So having assumed or ensured a good delivery phase, we now try to measure. So there is a need to measure what has been delivered, and hence the various parameters that may need to be measured are the program educational objectives, the outcomes, program outcomes, the PSOs, and the course outcomes. Now, there is a move to not make it essential or mandatory to measure the program educational objectives, since they reflect the professional career of our graduates after 3 to 5 years. And it is dependent to a large extent on the feedback provided by our alumni and their employers. And hence, it's not mandatory to actually compute this parameter. However, having a measure of the PEO attainment will help in reforming or redefining some of the academic procedures in the program, and hence it is advisable to continue computing to the extent possible the attainment of the program educational objectives. The next three, the program outcome, the program specific outcome, and the course outcome, have to be measured periodically. And to arrive at quantitative figures for each of these outcomes or objectives, we have some assessment tools, and some of them are listed here. The program educational objective can be computed every year on our graduates who have completed around 3 to 5 years after they leave the campus. and it can be associated with alumni survey, their employer survey, and uh, the attainment of the program outcomes at the time of their graduation. We will not focus on this PU attainment in this session. We will focus on the program outcomes and the course outcome. Uh, the program outcome is due to the contribution of the course outcome of all courses, and of course the other tools are the exit survey, the faculty survey, and to a small extent the various extracurricular and co-curricular activities provided by the campus. And this is measured every year at the time a batch graduates from the college. So at the end of an academic year, when the batch is ready to leave the portals of the campus, there is a need to compute the program outcome attainment of the PO or the PSO. And the course outcome is contributed mainly by three parameters, and that is the continuous internal evaluations of a course, the performance in the semester end exam, and to a small extent by the course end survey. And this we need to compute at the end of every semester for every course. So assuming we have put all the tools in practice and then implemented it, we need to arrive at distinct values for the attainment of each of the parameters, and observe the attainment, compare with set targets, and we need to have this data ready. And this is a phase where we are heading towards improvement. And of course, to ensure all these parameters are computed and the processes are established, there may be a need to constitute various committees to ensure none of the effective implementation and computation of the outcomes. Now, assuming we have now got the data of the attainment for various parameters, we now need to list the measures for improvement. And the measures for improvement may include an improvement within the classroom, may include improvement in the teaching learning process, maybe small changes in the assessments, or maybe if we have the academic autonomy, there is a scope to include new course, or definitely we have the scope of including new course outcomes. Maybe there exists a provision for adding or establishing new laboratories. We could also explore the offering, seeking industry support, maybe for partial course delivery, complete course delivery, or in the course design. Similarly, there exists the opportunity to explore alumni support towards course delivery or design. And definitely there is a need to focus on enhancing the quality of the projects. These are just some of the measures that are listed towards ensuring continuous improvement based on the attainment values of the program outcomes or the course outcomes. So this is in brief about the various stages of the OBE system, wherein we define outcomes and objectives, we deliver the system, then we have processes, measures for computing the attainment, and based on the attainment, we list the possible improvements that can be incorporated in the academic procedures to ensure the quality of our graduates. So to summarize, the OBE system is focused primarily on faculty teaching that leads to student learning, or faculty providing a good student learning experience. This is also known as developing the student learning outcomes, or which is also known as the program outcomes. As mentioned, program outcomes are common across all branches of engineering. To have the specific features of every engineering program. Every program has the freedom to frame additional 2 to 4 program specific outcomes. So the entire engineering education program or the process is focused on developing the program outcomes defined by NBA and the program specific outcomes defined by the stakeholders of the program. Now, having seen the OBE system in brief, we now see how can we ensure continuous improvement at various levels. We try to observe the program, what changes can happen at the program level. Now, at the program level, there are 3 main parameters. One is the program educational objective, the other is the program outcomes defined by NBA, and of course the program specific outcomes. And as mentioned, the program outcomes are defined by NBA, and all of us are aware of it, and hence let's not put any effort in trying to read these outcomes. They're available on the NBA website. Of course, there are 12 program outcomes defined. Now, as mentioned, the attainment of PEO is based on the surveys by the employer and the alumni and taken. But however, in this session, we focus only on the program outcomes and computing the attainment of the program outcomes or the program specific outcomes. This is contributed through the attainment of the course outcome of all core courses, and the surveys by the exit survey and the faculty survey, and the additional activities beyond curriculum that the campus provides, and this needs to be computed every year. Now, typically, a curriculum or a student goes through a series of courses, takes a number of courses, and that makes him complete the program, and he becomes eligible for the award of the degree. Now, a course will have a set of course outcomes, and they are likely to be aligned to one or more of the program outcomes. And today there exists a need to just not provide the mapping, but the strength of the mapping in numerical as 1, 2, or 3. And based on the performance of the students in the course, we have the actual attainments for every course outcome, together with the mapping to a program outcome. And as mentioned, the overall contribution to a particular program outcome of a course, we have 3 parameters: internal evaluation, the semester and performance, and course and survey. A weighted average can be obtained. However, the weights surveys are usually given a low weightage, and if we have equal freedom to define the semester and exam, probably we can give equal weightage, and in case we do not have, maybe we provide higher weightage to the internal and a lower weightage to the semester and exam. These weights are purely for arriving at the attainment of the COs or the contribution to the attainment of the PO, and and these weights do not reflect the weightage considered for the award of the degree or the award of the class to the student. So for every student, we arrive at these details at the end of the course, and then when a batch is ready for graduation, we list all the courses that the student has taken and consider the contribution of every course to the various program outcomes and the program specific outcomes. As mentioned, the number of program specific outcomes can be between 2 to 4, and I've just put here 3. Minimum is 2 and maximum is 4. And now when we prepare this table, which will contain the typical contribution from every course, there is an essential requirement that none of the columns are empty. No column can remain blank. We need to have contribution from at least one course for every program outcome. So that's a requirement that we need to ensure. Of course, 2 or more courses can contribute to the attainment of every program outcome. So we have the complete contribution of all courses taken by the student for the program, and then we arrive at the overall attainment for a batch. This data is not computed for a student, but is computed for the overall batch. So if I have a class of 60 students, I take the average performance of the complete class in arriving at this table, and this table finally gets translated to to an attainment uh, of the graduating batch. Uh, so all the courses taken by the students of an outgoing batch for an academic year, we finally arrive at some quantitative values, and we also have a target set for each of the attainment of each PO. And now, while computing these values is essential, most essential is the observations and the remarks that we make based on the attainment. So what academic measures we plan to introduce to enhance the attainment of a batch, the attainment of a batch. This is one activity that needs to be done at the program level every academic year. And similarly, there is a need to ensure similar table for two consecutive academic years, say for the present academic year and one academic year prior. And we need to have at least consistency, or if possible a progress. Definitely we cannot go down in the attainment values of any outcome. And so these, whenever we go down in the attainment values, we need to have a good introspection and figure out why we have gone down, and incorporate measures so that we continue to improve. So this is the activity that needs to happen every academic year for every program being offered by the department, and to have a measure of the attainment and whether there is a progress or not. Now what we need to observe is the program, the attainment of the overall contribution to the every PO is based completely on the contribution from various courses, and not all courses. It is the core courses, that is the courses that are taken by all the students of the program. Of course, there is a small contribution from the exit survey and the faculty survey, more towards a feedback process, and together there's also an additional a small contribution because of the through the co-curricular and extracurricular activities that the campus provides. However, significant attainment or of the program outcome depends solely through the contribution of the attainment of the course COs of various courses, and hence this becomes the most important component in the complete OBE system. So re-emphasizing, contribution from all core courses through the COs is the most significant component in the attainment of the program outcomes of an engineering graduate. So now let us see, having computed the program outcome, the attainment, the PSO attainment, and we have the data. Now we need to ensure how we ensure an improvement at the course level, because only when every course there is an improvement, it will lead to an improvement in the attainment of the program outcomes. So at the course level, we have just a course outcome, and of course the attainment and improvements through the attainment based on the attainment of the COs. And there are, as mentioned, we have significant contribution from the internal evaluation and the semester and examination, and a small contribution from the course end survey. And this has to be done at the end of every semester for every course. Typically, we consider, say we have a course, we have a set of course outcomes, say we have 6 course outcomes in this example that we have put here, and every course outcome gets mapped to a PO or a PSO, and there is the strength of the mapping. All this is indicated, and as always there is the need to have the data for at least 2 consecutive years. So the course on unlock communication offered in the current academic year and the previous academic year, a comparison of the attainment values, and some remarks. This is an essential document that or data that needs to be built at the end of every course after the computation of the attainment, because it is these values that will drive towards ensuring improvement. And before proceeding further, let us say, one parameter that is defined by NBA is the program outcome, while the course outcomes are defined by us, and the method of arriving at the attainment values is also defined by us. And simple it is easy to realize that given any data, since the method of computing the attainment is dependent on me, I can always arrive at a formula through which I can arrive a desired attainment. And hence, there is a need to emphasize here that it is not the exact attainment values that matter, but it is the maintaining a consistent formula or a method of arriving at the attainment, whether we are improving in our attainment or maintaining consistency or otherwise. That is the essence of arriving at the attainment, because often we have people question with questions like, is getting an attainment of 90% good, or is it good to get an attainment of 50%? Because it's purely relative, and it's based on the formula that we define towards calculating the attainment, and hence we need to look at the values for 2 or 3 academic years to arrive at the conclusion. Now, so let us say we have a course outcome attained, or a contribution from a course, all attainments are, say, 90% and above. It just implies that 90% and above of the students have performed extremely well in all the assessments of the course, which implies that we have not included some challenging questions, or that gave a good distribution of the performance in the test. Similarly, if we take the other extreme of attainment values of very low, say around 50%, it again means that only 50% of the students have performed reasonably well in the various assessments. So, and these figures depend on the formula that we apply to compute the attainment, and hence there is a need to look into the values over consecutive years, keeping the method of computation constant. And the method of computation cannot vary from course to course or from department to department. It's suggested to have a uniform formula across, definitely across a department, and if possible across the institution. And based on the attainment values of the course outcome, we can probably introduce new course outcome, introduce changes in the delivery methods, or introduce changes in the assessment tools, or in the case that all the course outcomes are well attained, there is a scope to increase the targets for attainment. And finally, at the end, every faculty probably submits observations, proposed change methods in delivery assessment, and so that if the same faculty were to handle the course next year, it helps. And if another faculty were to handle also the concluding remarks and the suggestions that is arrived at through the computation of the attainment helps in the next course, the faculty handling the similar course next academic year. So now, having seen, we have come to a clear conclusion that the complete success of the program depends on the contribution of the course outcomes of various courses in the program, and hence there is a need to clearly define the course outcomes. So we'll spend the next few minutes on the key component in the entire OBE system, which is defining the course outcomes. I think yes, it's a repetition. So it depends on the contribution from every faculty and every course through the course outcomes. And what are course outcomes? They describe the skill or competency gained by the student at the end of the course. They need to be accessible and measurable. Every course has a set of course outcomes and maybe about 6 course outcomes, and every course outcome may address one or more program outcome or the program specific outcomes. Now we need to be very clear that course outcomes are written for the skill or the outcome or the program outcome being addressed and not the topic being addressed. And we had seen the 12 program outcomes defined by NBA. Here they are just listed by the keywords, the 12 of them. And the entire engineering education is focused on developing these skills in our students. And before we proceed, often there is another parameter that comes in the entire process, and that is the Bloom's level. Now, here we have listed the Bloom's level and the first 4 program outcomes. When we list, what we observe is remember and understand do not directly figure in the list of program outcomes, while apply, the third Bloom's level directly gets aligned to apply knowledge. The analyze gets mapped to the second program outcome, the problem analysis. Evaluate can be considered to map to conduct investigations. And similarly, the highest Bloom's level, create, may be aligned to design or development of solutions. So why we are doing this observation is when we try and focus on program outcomes, we are addressing the Bloom's level also. So there is no need to explicitly consider mapping to Bloom's level and hence to program outcomes, because they are embedded. And a simple reason why these two levels have not been explicitly included, because we expect our engineering graduates to have the ability to apply knowledge, and apply knowledge comes only when he remembers a few concepts and he has understood. And so these two, remember and understand, are embedded in the apply knowledge ability of the defined by NBA, the lowest program outcome. So hence our attempt or our teaching learning process should not be focused purely just on remember and understand, but definitely going beyond, and that is beyond apply, analyze, design. So now we'll take few examples of defining course outcomes for a course, and I've just listed by the topic. I take example from the domain I come from, the electronics and communication, and hence of course, those who are not from this domain need not worry, because the focus is not on these topics, but how to define the course outcome. So signals and systems, if you take, I have start off with definition, the time domain representation, the frequency domain representation, and the course concludes with the system design. So one way of a possible set of course outcomes that we have arrived at for this course is, first course outcome is to define, understand, explain continuous time signals and systems. And definitely it maps to the remember or understand uh, attribute, uh, and ability to obtain the output of LTI systems using time and frequency domain representation. We are addressing the apply knowledge, apply skill, ability to analyze the given specifications of LTI continuous time systems. Here we are analyzing, developing the analyze skill and design filters. Now we'll just go back to the course content, and if you see, we have definition, time domain, frequency domain, and design. And if we look at the course outcomes, if I look at course outcome 1, probably it addresses all the topics of the course. If I go to the second outcome, course outcome, again obtain time domain and frequency domain, once again addresses the complete course content. Analyze probably addresses a few topics in the course, and design filters, it addresses maybe 1 or 2 topics in the course. So we like to emphasize here that course outcomes are written such that they clearly map to a particular outcome to be developed, skill to be developed. Now, having defined the course outcome, what goes with it? We recall that this outcome is not emphasized by any of the accrediting agencies, and hence this need not be focused to a large extent, but there is a need to develop the apply, analyze, and the design skill in the student. So that's it. So the first course outcome, which includes or addresses the lower 2 levels of the Bloom, is not emphasized, and hence we may ignore, we may not even compute the CO attainment of this, and we need to focus only on CO2, 3, and 4, which are obtain, analyze, and design, and which have a one-to-one mapping with program outcome 1, 2, and 3. Now, having defined the course outcome, what goes together with the course outcome is the type of questions that we are going to ask in our assessments. Like if just go back, if my course outcome is defined to address remember, the type of questions that I'm likely to ask in my examinations are define signal, state and explain Fourier transform, state and explain the applications of Fourier transform, write short notes on Fourier transform, list various types of analog filters. So when we define the course outcome, inherent with this definition is the type of assessments that accompany it, and it becomes very obvious, and it's also very clear that we should not focus on these type of questions, and we should ensure that we do not ask these type of questions, or even if we ask, we restrict its percentage in the overall assessment. Now let's take the second course outcome was based on apply knowledge, and a simple if my focus is on applying knowledge, a question that I can ask in the exam is obtain the Fourier transform of the signals given below. I've given a signal and the student applies the knowledge. He's able to apply knowledge because he remembers the formula, he has understood to apply, and then he applies and arrives at the Fourier transform of the signal here given below, the non-periodic signal or the periodic signal. Comparing the two, we know that the second example is elaborate, but well, they are direct application, and all students arrive at the same right answer. Moving to analyze, we analyze and then arrive at some conclusion. So here some 2 simple examples we are giving to that for a possible type of question that may be asked to test the analyze skill. We are given the Fourier transform, and we want to comment on the stability of the system and the physical realizability of the system, whether it's possible to realize or not. And similarly here we have given an input-output pair of a system, and the student is asked to comment on the linearity of the system. So he does a little bit of analysis. Of course, the examples are simple, but it's possible to arrive at suitable examples for every skill based on the course. Now, design. If I want to address design, I can ask the student to come out with an analog system to have a response close to this. Of course, the answer is not possible, but any close approximation to this frequency response he comes. And when we give this type of a question, we will all realize that there is no single unique answer, because it's too broad and not many specifications given. So the student can decide the type of the filter, the order of the filter, sorry, and arrive at a design. Similarly, if I ask the students to come out with a digital system to filter noise from the recording of this lecture, again the question is so broad that the student has wide choice in the selection of the parameters, the features, and comes at different solutions, and all solutions are right. Design essentially focuses on arriving at having more than one right answer, and the student is able to arrive at any one implementation and justify the implementation. And may be difficult to come out with a typical design exercise in a written exam, conventional written exam, and maybe a lab exercise is what will help. Otherwise, a simple design, a well-defined design problem will lead to a unique answer, and which is nothing but testing him on the applied skill. So now we need, having defined the course outcome, as mentioned, there is a need to ensure that this course outcome we avoid completely during our assessments and make it zero if possible. But until we reach that stage, and we may have a small percentage. Applied knowledge can have a significant portion, a component in our assessments, and analyze maybe these are all ranges, but probably a good range can be decided at the department level for various courses, so that this is fixed. And this percentage is planned in advance, like what percentage of my assessments are going to address the remember or the apply or analyze or design. And this percentage of the type of questions that are going to be used in my evaluations for every course outcome may also be an indicative of the strength of the mapping. I may map a strength as 0, as 1, 2, or 3. Because I'm giving a higher strength for this, I'm going to I may give this a mapping strength of 3, and whereas these two are little on the lower range, so I may give both of them a mapping strength of 2. So this is one measure or one method of arriving at the mapping strength, but definitely there is a need to plan on the course outcome, have a clarity on the type of assessment that go with it, and also a broad idea of the percentage of questions or the assessments that will contribute to the attainment of each course outcome. Having seen one course example, we'll take another example on analog communication, again from the electronics and communications background, and we have few topics, and I think we will not once again here this is a course, an example with 7 course outcomes. So as before, we have the remember, apply, analyze, design, and we identify now that each of these course outcomes will have a typical type of questions that may be asked for assessing the attainment of every outcome. Now here we have this is a course which has some lab associated, and hence we have a course outcome clearly mentioning the ability to conduct experiments to demonstrate concepts related to the using suitable components or engineering tools. So here the student actually goes through lab exercises using discrete components, and few of them using the tool MATLAB, and hence we have a course outcome that maps to the modern tool or the program outcome 5. In addition, we have another course outcome that is defined, and that is effective oral presentation. Make an effective oral presentation on broadcast standards, contribution to society. So this is a course which expects every student to deliver a seminar, and because we are asking him to deliver a seminar, we are addressing the communication skill, and since he's engaging in independent study, we are addressing the lifelong learning or the independent study. And the last course outcome is ability to perform in a team to build an AM or FM receiver using discrete components or a simulation tool. And because he's using some tool, we definitely have the modern. And when he designs, and he definitely analyzes, because it's not going to work at the first attempt, and he debug and he arrives at the and make the whole system work. So uh, this course is taken purely to demonstrate that we can include some the lab component can definitely get reflected as one of the course outcomes, and that will directly map to the modern tool. And we may include additional activities, maybe a seminar or a small model or a project. Of course, I've included both of them in the same course. Now, if we want to test the remember skill, we need not focus on it. Type of questions would be explain, state and explain, what are the applications, and so on. If it is apply, direct numerical examples. And now here sketch the AM and the FM waveform for the message signal given below and obtain. So direct application, and then he applies knowledge and arrives at suitable results. And here analyze. Here we have the LabVIEW implementation of just a multiplier, and we have this oscilloscope and this. So here the student is asked to sketch the possible outputs of the oscilloscope and the spectrum, and also identify the type of modulation. So a little bit, again a simple example, but just to show that we could develop the analyze skill even in written exams. Design is, as mentioned, very open-ended, and a lot of right answers. Maybe this is something we implemented last time for this course, and design an analog receiver system for receiving AM signals. And maybe this is too futuristic. Maybe sometime, maybe just design campus radio system. It may be just an idea that he submits, may not be a real implementation, but an idea. And again, there will be a lot of right answers to these type of problems. Now, coming to the modern tool, also can be assessed in an exam. Maybe if we ask him to develop the code or give the code and ask him to write the output, or decode a given code. Now, coming to the seminar that every student had to deliver as part of this course, a small contribution, a small part of the entire internal evaluation, but he had to make a oral presentation on different students given different topics, all related to the course. Maybe broadcast standards in India, contribution to society, impact of this EM radiation on health, impact on environment, the overall evolution of the analog communication in India, the permitted radiation levels in India, what are the licensed and the unlicensed bands. And if you see, this is all a part of the self-study or his independent study. And because it is more like he browses the net or refers to literature, and it's very not too depth, but just an idea, a little add-on to what is conventionally taught in the classroom, and they get lot of learning happens, and these topics are such that the student can learn by himself, because actual concept of modulation, the mathematics and the everything is given in the class through the regular teaching process. The project that he had to build, the students had to build, were in a group. They were asked to build either an AM receiver or an FM receiver, but the only one constraint was they had to come out with a live reception of the analog broadcast, analog broadcast. And it was fun walking, and every student had tried different circuits. They succeeded, and each group had a different method of implementing, and it was a joy to watch the student and see them receive the live signal. This is a little bit exhaustive, too much, but of course we could decide on one of the parameters going beyond the conventional assessments. I think Engineering project is another example I take for defining the course outcome. It's extremely important to define clearly the course outcomes for the engineering project because it literally addresses all the outcomes expected by and defined by NBA. Of course, here we have defined 15, but it could be fewer than 15, maybe 8 to 10 course outcomes. But definitely a need to ensure that we map to all the program outcomes. And I think I will not read out, but it just clearly puts in stages. First, he researches literature, then he identifies and formulates. He identifies the community that shall benefit through this solution to the problem, and ensures that there is a compliance to the prescribed standards. He comes out with the project scheduling for implementing. Then he lists the concepts, mathematical concepts, engineering concepts that are required for implementing the identified problem. And he lists the possible tools that may be used for implementing. And finally, he selects one set of tools or components for implementing the project. And then he implements it. Maybe he implements one design solution or implements two solutions and has a comparison of the two. Finally, results. Definitely there's a need to do a budget analysis. A budget definitely includes finance, but for every engineer, it may include other parameters as well, maybe power, area, bandwidth, size, or any other. Then he engages in written communication skills through the project, maybe through the report. And if we can ask him to make a one-page poster presentation and a four-page IEEE format, it adds to his written communication skill. He develops oral communication through making an oral presentation and also submitting a video about the project. And since it's usually done in a team, he learns to perform in the team, contribute to the team, maybe mentor or lead if possible. And there's a need to abide by the professional ethics, and that is addressed through this outcome, and we ensure a plagiarism check of every project. This is just a sample, not a guideline. And of course, with that course outcome, we have the rubrics. Say I give us more than 70% marks if he has referred to more than 10 articles, and accordingly. So this again will not read all of this. And the course outcomes translate, we have a rubrics. And finally, the rubrics reflects itself as an evaluation sheet, and that is given to every person. The guide, there's a committee, an external expert if possible, and also a peer evaluation if possible, because this will help every student evaluate the projects of others in the class, and he learns in the process of evaluation. That's the whole purpose. Of course, a small weightage, 5% in the entire process. And now here there are two components. There is a component common to all members of the group, and this is around 75% of the total evaluation, while the individual performance has a 25% weightage, and this is based on his oral presentation, his response to questions, and the way he makes his presentation. So this is how it reflects, and this is most important component in the entire curriculum, because all knowledge that we give over the years reflects and manifests itself as a single project towards the end of the program. Now, to summarize what we have seen, the course outcomes are written for the skill to be addressed and not for the topic. And very often we find that course outcomes are usually an abridged version of the course content. I think this will skip. And an example of when we write it topic-wise, so they take the first topic, design, analyze continuous time signals, define, design, analyze frequency domains. So this is an example of an incorrect method of writing the course outcomes or defining the course outcomes based on the topic. And this we need to definitely avoid this method of defining the course outcomes. We need to focus on including number of activities in a course, maybe a seminar, maybe read a research article, maybe implement a research paper, maybe submit a video, a small project, engage in social networking, or demonstrate a self-defined experiment. And very often we find that many faculty do engage in these type of activities, but however they do not get reflected through the course outcome. So that situation needs to be avoided, or at least in the next academic year, if an activity has been included, it needs to be ensured that it reflects as a course outcome. So course outcomes clearly tell the student and helps the faculty also plan on the various assessments that they would like to include. And we need to ensure that it should not happen that all teachers become ambitious and every teacher asks for a seminar, every teacher asks for a mini project. So we need to distribute among the various courses in a semester and ensure that maybe one faculty asks for a seminar, another faculty asks for a project, and so on, so that there is a distribution of the student time among various courses. Now coming to ensuring improvement at the institute level, having seen the course outcome and its contribution, at institute level there is by and large tremendous support at the institution level, and their focus is on ensuring that the vision of the institute is met, and their main contribution would be in ensuring that we have the required number of faculty and quality faculty. That's important, and the positions, and of course a little bit of together with enough publicity, and ensure that we get the right students, good quality students, and the required infrastructure. By and large, all institutions provide these basic requirements, and hence we'll move on to the improvement through faculty contribution. This again is a very essential, important component in the entire academic process. Faculty has various roles to play. He engages in different activities. Of course, teaching is the primary responsibility. In addition, the faculty engages in research and projects and mentors students, upgrades knowledge, and contributes, collaborates with the industry. And every activity of every faculty in turn leads to the progress of the institution. So let us look faculty as a teacher. What is it the faculty can do as a teacher? There is a need to get recognized as a good teacher. When the students, we ask who's the best teacher, and we should aim at being identified as the best teacher. And there is a need to publish the teaching learning process that comes in engineering education, maybe conference or a journal, and share innovative practices, maybe through programs if possible. Develop new methods of implementing lab, or come out with new lab content. Definitely develop content, maybe lab manuals, lecture notes to begin with, which eventually may result in big books being published, and maybe a long time goal shall be maybe an offering a MOOC course, so that we definitely reach out to an audience much beyond the students in our class. Now coming to research and consultancy. Research, we are expected to be active in research, maybe in a conference, definitely in a journal, a research that leads to a product or probably a patent. These are all ambitious goals, but on an average, at least one peer-reviewed journal quality publication in a year, I think this is all we expect from every faculty, so that there is a gradual increase in the citation index through the contribution from every faculty. And consultancy, maybe we need to focus, at least the senior faculty in the departments need to ensure that they continuously strive towards getting funding, maybe from various agencies, and there is a continuous inflow of funds for carrying out various research activities. And in addition, all of us need to ensure that we continuously upgrade our knowledge. Maybe we take up a course